Hey guys, what's up? It's Alec Torelli. Welcome back to a new episode of The Hand of the Day, brought to you by Conscious Poker.
Hand of the Day.
First off, if you're new to this channel, Conscious Poker is the best place to take your game to the next level. If you want awesome hand reviews of all the biggest, most relevant hands that are happening today in real time, along with the chance to ask me anything you want and get your questions answered, be sure to hit that like and subscribe button. Most importantly, turn on notifications so you never miss another video. For now, let's jump into this hand between Randall Emmett and Brandon Cantu. Super interesting hand here, played recently, streamed on PokerGo. So we have 25-50 blinds, and at the last minute, there's a straddle to 100. And Emmett finds himself under the gun with two kings and opts to make it 700, a very big raise size here. Typically, you don't see 7x opens. You typically see something like a 3x open. And while I am for going bigger with a straddle in place, especially from early position, something like 4x or 5x, 7x is definitely on the large side. That said, I'm not opposed to it. I like thinking outside the box and mixing things up. You are under the gun, you can represent a lot of strength, and if you're going to steal with a 7x open with something like ace-5 suited or jack-10 suited, and you want to rep a hand like aces or kings, that could be a deceptive play. So maybe do it with aces and kings, balance that out, and just throw your opponents for a loop. The one thing you got to keep in mind in poker is that if everyone plays the same ABC style, betting the same amounts, raising the same amounts, calling and raising in the same certain spots, and you're the one that does something different, that's a way to get an edge. That's a way to put yourself in a spot where you can be prepared for a play that others aren't. So I'm okay with this play. I actually like it. I'm in favor of doing different things. Folds around to Cantu, who has the 7-5 suited in the cutoff. And while I am for calling wider in spots like these, especially because you're 300 big blinds deep, this is a little bit on the loose side to me. I could get behind a call here. If the button plays tight, and San, if he plays tight in cash games, I'm not really sure. I haven't seen much of his play, and you're unlikely to get re-raised from the blinds, I could get behind calling here. You want to realize your equity, so it's important that the blinds and the people behind you aren't going to 3-bet you, because obviously otherwise you're not going to be able to continue in the hand. But the one reason I don't like calling here is mainly because it's a 7x open. So you're calling 700 pre-flop, it's very big. If it was something like 300, I would definitely be more in favor of calling here. But that said, if Emmett does have a big hand, like he's representing, if you feel like he's exploitatively unbalanced here and he's making a big open with something like kings, you want the 7-5 suited. You want a hand that can bust kings. So actually, if you have a read on the situation and you're pretty sure he has a really strong hand, calling with these types of hands is good. The last thing you want is a hand that doesn't play well post-flop, like ace-jack offsuit or king-queen suited. I'd much rather have the 7-5 suited. Cantu calls, everybody else gets out of the way. Let's go heads up to the flop. The flop comes down 7-4 deuce rainbow, a very good flop for both players. Emmett with a massive overpair, and Cantu with top pair, a backdoor straight draw, and a backdoor flush draw. So a lot going on for him as well. Emmett now bets out 1,500, a pot-sized bet. And here I feel like his range is leaning more and more towards an overpair. I'm not sure how he plays all these situations, if he's going to be balanced here and betting with a bluff like ace-5 suited or king-queen suited or whatever it is, but it feels more and more to me like an overpair. He made an over-raise pre-flop and then bet pot on the flop. It feels like he has a pretty damn strong hand. So if I'm Cantu, I'm going to be proceeding with caution here. I'm going to call this flop, sort of see what happens. Even though I have a read that he has an overpair, we could be wrong, but we have so much equity that we just can't fold. Top pair, backdoor straight draw, backdoor flush draw, even if he has an overpair, we don't really mind. If we hit two pair or backdoor hand, we can bust that hand, or maybe even outplay him later on in the hand. So we got a pretty standard bet from Emmett. I think typically here in spots like these, you're going to see people bet smaller, like a third of the pot, to keep their range wider and just because they're betting often. But I'm okay with this exploitative bet sizing. Maybe he's confusing his opponents, throwing him for a loop. I say go for it. He makes a big bet. Cantu calls. Let's go heads up to the turn. The turn comes down to 6 of hearts, an amazing card for Cantu, giving him a backdoor straight draw and a backdoor flush draw. Emmett now bets out 3,000. Into 4,500. And here I think it's even more and more telling that he actually has an overpair. I don't think he would be bluffing this turn with no equity. I don't think he would just bet again with ace-king to, like, you know, find out where he's at or try and get his opponent to fold an overpair or top pair. It feels to me like when he makes this big raise pre-flop and then bets the flop and then bets the turn again, that he actually has it. He has something like 10s plus, 10s through aces is pretty much what I'm putting him on. One thing that's important to keep in mind here is it's really unlikely that Emmett connected with this board. So it doesn't mean he doesn't have a strong hand. An overpair is still a very strong hand, but it's unlikely that this board actually helped him. He raised so big under the gun, it's not that likely to me that he has something like 7-6 suited or pocket sevens. I just don't think he would play that hand that way. So I think what's ironic about this situation is that although his hand is strong, his range is what is called capped, meaning it's limited to one pair type hands. Now over to Cantu in position, whose range is not capped. He can have things like maybe a straight, probably not, but he can definitely have sets. He can definitely have deuces, fours, sixes, and sevens a lot easier than Emmett. He's more likely to call with those hands than Emmett is to raise with them originally. And he could also have 7-6 suited a lot easier. So Cantu goes for this crazy play and opts to jam all in for 30K here, a 10x raise. Plays you really never see going on in the streets today in Hold'em. Even though this is a play that you don't see very often, I have to give a lot of credit to Cantu here, who read the situation very well. He's semi-bluffing here with a hand that has a lot of equity versus an overpair. You can see here he still has 45% chance of winning, even if his opponent does have kings. But the best way to get him to fold that hand is to make a very big raise. If you go all in, you put a hand like 10s, jacks, queens, kings, and aces in an impossibly difficult spot. So I think Cantu here is on the right track. He knows exactly what his opponent has. He read the situation right. He knows his opponent has a big pair, and he's trying to get him to fold it. So that's the level he's thinking on here, and I think this is overall a great play. You have a really good chance of getting him to fold, and if you're wrong, you still have 50% chance to win the pot. So Cantu can't have that many bluffs here, right? What hands is Cantu calling a raise pre-flop with, calling the flop with, and then jamming the turn with? There's not that many hands he can be bluffing with. So maybe the only bluffs he can have are hands like 7x of hearts, like ace-7 of hearts or 8-7 of hearts. But 7-6 is two pair. He can have all the sets. His range is technically stronger in a lot of ways because he can have more premium hands than Emmett can have that connect with his board based on the pre-flop play. So I actually really, really like this shove from Cantu. Credit to him for making a ballsy play, going with his read, and just going for it. You don't see people doing that often enough in big spots like these. So I absolutely love this bet by Cantu. Now over to Emmett, who tanks for a little while and says some interesting banter. Let's take a look.
I just think you're on a draw. I just think, or you have some bullshit pair, 10s, 9s, 8s, jacks. I have them all beat.
And I could see why he could maybe think that, but I just think that's impossible, frankly. Love Emmett, credit, legend, but at the same time, Cantu is never going to bluff with a hand that has that little equity. If he has a hand like 8s, 9s, 10s, jacks, maybe he just hero folds it on the turn because it really looks like Emmett has a big pair. Maybe he calls again and sees a river. If he is going to bluff, he's going to bluff with a hand that has more equity when called.
I had a feeling you were going to put me to this decision. There's no one in the world that would fold my hand. No one. I'm going to need a couple minutes, not a minute. I need a full 2 minutes to think. There's no one that would fold this hand.
Well, don't be the only one.
I think you just fucking made a move and you didn't realize that I have a monster. The only thing is, did you get lucky with your bullshit garbage hand?
Cantu in full turtle mode.
And I saw you stick it to Berkey with bullshit. God, dude. Why put all your chips on? Just steal the pot?
Credit to Emmett here, who had some great logic. Wait a minute. If you actually did have a big hand, why would you jam? And this is the one qualm I have with the play. It's like, if Cantu exploitatively did have a big hand, like a set or two pair, wouldn't he want to get value and just flat call and then jam the river, or make it 9K and then have Emmett jam or Emmett call and then he can get a big bet on the river? It's like people don't typically jam here with made hands for value. So I love the fact that Emmett's even thinking about calling here, knowing that his opponent's likely weak, just exploitatively based on his bet. I love this read. That's what makes this hand so interesting and dynamic.
Set, 2 pair, straight. And that's the only, I mean, it's like, why would you ship if you had those hands?
All right, I call clock.
Serious?
Yeah,
It's a $60,000 decision.
it's been 5 minutes.
Clock.
I haven't had enough time. It's the biggest hand of the night. Somebody needs to speak up.
It's
Give
been-
him a little bit more.
Yeah, I mean, he's an asshole.
It hasn't been over 5 minutes?
You're an asshole.
Oh, 2-3 minutes.
You do a 2-minute clock, big clock, long clock.
Yeah, that's the longest fucking 2 minutes of my life. I've done 3 texts. One thing has been at least 5 minutes. I've never called clocks on anyone.
Now Matusow calls the clock, and there's people debating over how much time had passed. Well, I actually watched the entire tape, and exactly 4 minutes passed before Matusow called the clock. Now, I know this is a controversial subject, so I'd love to hear from you in a comment below. Is this a fair amount of time? Remember, you are playing a high-stakes poker game. You're on national television, and it's a 300 big blind decision on the turn. This is arguably the biggest single decision that's going to be made the entire night. But at the same time, I can understand calling the clock because 4 minutes did pass, and 4 minutes is a long time to make a decision. Plus, when you add the fact that the floor person has to come over, and then you have a minute after that, you're looking at about 5 or 6 minutes here for this decision from Emmett. My personal take is anytime after 2.5 minutes is a fair amount of time to call the clock on someone. That gives them 2.5 minutes clean to think, plus another minute or 2 by the time the floor comes over and gives you the rundown. Just my take, but I'd love to hear your thoughts in a comment below. As the clock's winding down, Emmett's thinking even more, but before we jump into the results, I'd like to show you how I sort of navigate these spots. This is something I talk more about in the membership, but for now, here's a simple exercise you can use to figure out whether or not you should be calling in these situations. Take a look at this screenshot here. This is a poker equity program called Poker Cruncher, which allows you to enter your hand here in the first line and your opponent's range of hands here in the second line. They're highlighted in green and yellow on the right sidebar. So you can see here I gave Cantu a range. I discounted some sets like 4s and deuces because I don't think he's going to shove all the time with a set. But even against a range that includes some bluffs like, you know, the hand he has and other 7x hearts types of hands, you can see here that Kings only has 26% equity. So even if you do put your opponent on some bluffs, unless you have some super sick read or tell that he's weak when he shoves the turn or something like that, I think personally, Kings, you're just going to have to let this one go. Because in the end, the math never lies.
All right. You steal it. Good.
Wow!
I stole it.
What?
I stole it.
You did?
Okay.
On a pair of 7s. All right, next hand. It's on it. Pair of 7s.
That's not true.
I might have had a draw with it, but I had a pair of 7s.
7-5.
Can believe me or not.
I believe you. Where would you lie?
I don't.
Not gonna lie.
That's it for this video, guys. Thanks for watching. Leave your thoughts in the comment below. How would you have played this hand? And if you want more awesome content from me on behalf of Conscious Poker, check out the website, consciouspoker.com, where you can download my free hand reading system. It's the exact process I go through in every hand of play. My blueprint, my system, I made it available to you free. Check it out at the link below. Thanks for watching. See you guys in the next one.